Welcome to the Boldest You podcast. I'm your host, Carrie, and I'm thrilled to bring you real conversations with bold women and men. In this podcast, we dive deep into their stories, exploring what drives their courage, shapes their vision, and fuels their desire to leave a lasting impact. These are honest, vulnerable, and inspiring moments that celebrate what it means to be bold. Let's discover their legacies together. This week on the Boldest You podcast, we're doing something a little different. I am flipping the script, and instead of me asking the questions, I am the one answering them. For this episode, I invited Kristin Taffe, a previous guest, to come back and step into the host seat and interview me about my own boldest moments. Every month, I ask my guests to share their story, and I figured it was time to share my own. In this episode, we talk about my leadership journey and how I've gotten to where I am. Kristin does a phenomenal job asking questions to dive deeper into the work that I do, my passions outside of work, and the things that are most important to me. I hope that you enjoy this episode, because if you've ever wondered about the person behind the questions, this one's for you. Let's get into it.
Hi, Carrie. Welcome to the Boldest You podcast. I think it's one that you know a little something about.
I think I might, yes.
I think you might as well. I'm excited to step in to host today, which gives all of our listeners the chance to get to know you better. So this is just a really great opportunity, and it's something that I've been looking forward to learning about your story.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Kristin. I'm so glad you stepped in as host. I think you're going to do a great job.
Have you been excited to be on the other side of the interview?
Yes and no. It's a little nerve-wracking. I'm like, gosh, is this what people feel like when I interview them? It's fun to be able to tell my story and for people to get to know me more, but also these are vulnerable things to talk about, as I know my guests probably feel that way. So, a little nervous, but that probably just makes us all the more human.
Absolutely. I'm excited too, because I've gotten to know your story and you through our friendship, but also through listening to your anecdotes with other interviews. And so I'm excited to get a more robust picture of where, what were the big moves in your life. So you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, Carrie, tell me about a time when you have had to be bold.
I was thinking about this morning, just like I feel like so many of my guests have said, where, like, gosh, there's probably a lot of moments in my life that I've felt like I've had to be bold. The one that sticks out the most, that probably touches both on personal and professional, is a few years back when I was truly at probably like the most burnt out I've ever been from a work and life perspective, and having to have a really tough conversation. Not tough with because like the people I was having it with weren't caring or respectful, but tough because it's really hard for someone like myself who is a um recovering people pleaser and try hard, achiever, all of the above, to admit that I was at a place where I needed help. And so I had truthfully was just at like, could not do another thing. Like there was nothing left in the tank. Um, and so I like kind of had to come to the realization, and it wasn't me that figured it out. It was my therapist that was like, I really don't know that you're doing so well. And setting up that conversation with my direct manager, and my boss at work, to then admit that and say, hey, I here's where I'm at. I think something has to change. I don't know what that looks like, but like I just need to be honest with where I'm feeling. And it turned into like a really beautiful moment, but it was by far the one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and took a lot of boldness and courage.
How did you prepare for that conversation?
Well, I talked about it with my therapist, and like I said, I think part of that was it took the realization, when you're someone like me, like I think that I can conquer the world as long as I have my to-do list, like I can get it all done. So I was just running on, what I knew. And through a conversation when I was in therapy, I was talking just about how like overwhelmed I had been feeling and all these things. And it was a couple of months worth of, I had a cold like every 3 weeks, which is not normal, especially for someone who, like, I take vitamin C, and I'm a relatively healthy person. And I just was like, what in the world? And people in my life were like, Carrie, you're sick all the time. And so I was bringing that up in therapy, but just like I was frustrated that I was sick all the time, because then I'm not in my routine. And my therapist kind of stopped me, and she's like, you do realize that your body is forcing you to stop. Like, you like you can't keep doing this. And if you do, like, it's going to cause more severe consequences. And that was like such an eye opener where I was like, wait, what? Like, I had no idea. And so then I just set up the meeting, and I'm very thankful I have a very good relationship with my boss, and my leadership team at work, where it didn't feel scary necessarily to have that conversation, because I think they maybe knew without me having to say it, but they were waiting for me to admit it. And so
Yeah.
I kind of wrote down, like, yeah, what are some of the things I've been experiencing? And to just be like super honest in that conversation to say, like, if this continues, I genuinely don't think that I can stay. And that's not what I wanted, right? Like, I did not want to go anywhere. They didn't want me to leave. Like, that was the really beautiful part of that conversation, is them going like, yeah, we don't want you to go anywhere. Like, how do we help you? And to be able then to come up with some solutions. Like, I don't know that I knew what the exact answer was, but it was having the conversation to say, like, what can we do? And even for them to offer help, which, I think that's such a hard part of these conversations, is we don't know what people can help us with. And so it was also identifying, like, okay, if they ask me for help, like, what are a few things that they could do, or just like asking for advice. Like, I don't know how to get out of this. Like, what do I do in this moment? So it was a lot of just like kind of psyching myself up and encouraging, like, it's okay to have this conversation. Um, I'm a big affirmations person, and religion's really important to me. So it was even just saying a quick prayer, like, help me get through this, help me to be honest. And just, going back to some of those affirmations I hang on my office wall of like, we can do hard things, and like, it's like, you are important, and like, your
Yes.
voice is worthy of being heard. And just, yeah, some of that inner confidence that I had to build up to be able to admit, like, I actually am not operating at 100%. So yeah.
I think it's also like in that moment, I do think it would be incredibly difficult, even as people like offer you solutions, to not feel like, oh, I'm putting you out now. Like, oh, I've made your life more difficult because of my problems. And like, that would be a really hard thing for me, I think, too, even as people are offering solutions, the idea of like, I don't want to weight somebody else down either. Like, I'm trying to not sink your ship at the same time, like that kind of thing.
Gosh, I still deal with that. Like, a couple of months ago, my team had some changes on it that led to me having to take on a little bit more work that I don't typically do, and also kind of getting to a point of, like, I would say minor burnout with just some things. And yeah, having to openly admit, like, hey, I can't do this all. I'm gonna need some people to take some things on, but also feeling like such guilt that, like, I'm so sorry. I know that you are just as busy as I am, and I don't want anyone else to feel burnout, because I have felt that, right? And so then it's that, like, I always say, I think I'm a little risk averse. And so I'm like, oh, like, if this will cause someone else to not feel that way, like, I'll just do it, which isn't healthy for anyone, right? Like, some
Right.
of those things give people really great opportunities to learn something new or to stretch in a different way. But it is so hard to admit that and then go, yeah, like, you, like, this will be extra work for you, but it's like, thank you so much. And as someone who really struggles with control, I think the other side of that is, it's hard to give things up, especially
Yes.
things that I like doing, like telling someone, hey, I want you to work on this. Like, as a manager, yes, I want to see my people thrive. I want to see them learn and grow. But some of those tasks I really enjoy, and I didn't want to give up. And that was part of it too. That it's like, well, if I could just give away all the hard stuff that I don't want to do, or the things that I don't like, but that's not always reality either. And so it's like, gosh, if I could control everything, if I could do everything, and I could never make someone feel bad about, like, the work that I'm doing impacting them, that would be ideal. But that's also not reality.
It's right. Absolutely. Just thinking back to that conversation and the solutions, how did you identify what would be a helpful solution for you? Was it, I need more personal time? Was it, I need to be able to set a boundary? I can't deal with these problems at 4 a.m. What did that look like in terms of you just having to understand what would help reduce this level of burnout I'm feeling?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's multifaceted. One, for me, it was being able to actually be validated by my leadership, and not that they weren't like actively validating me, right? I think it was just
Yeah.
being willing to say, like, I need you to recognize and understand where I'm at, because I'm also someone who probably isn't as open about the overwhelm that I'm feeling in my one-on-ones with them. And so it was the first time that I was like actually admitting, like, this is where I am, and asking, like, I recognize you can't fix everything, but I need you to tell me, like, we're gonna get through it. And I don't need, the over positivity. Like, that's never worked for me, of the like, oh, everything's gonna be fine, but like, be in the suck with me. Um, and just kind of keep me level headed and grounded. It was a little bit of boundary setting, and I don't know that that necessarily came from my leadership team. It was maybe things that I identified. Like, now I am very adamant that outside of work hours, like, on my phone, I don't have Outlook notifications. I don't have Teams notifications. My team knows that they can text me if it's an emergency, because of course I don't want to, I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're on an island. But
Yes.
if
Yep.
it's something that's just like that I can get to tomorrow, like, I'm not letting myself be sucked in. And that's really important just for a mental standpoint of when I am trying to get away, like after 5 p.m., understanding, like, I need to disconnect. I need to step away from my computer. Um, it also is putting things like this tagline that a lot of us at work use in our signature line, but it's like, hey, my working hours might not be your working hours. And that it's giving me that allowance to like work different hours. Like, if I need to work because I have something going on during the day, I can work a little bit later, but then it kind of removes some of that pressure that my team might feel of like, oh, Carrie's working all these hours, I need to. um but vice versa, like, also letting them know, like, hey, you might be working these different hours because your schedule is changing, but don't expect that I'm necessarily going to respond, unless again it's an emergency. So with some of those things, and I think it led to this broader conversation around where our team was at the time. We were certainly in a phase of growth, and that's really exciting. And for someone like myself, like, change is something I really struggle with.
Yep.
And so it
Right.
was like we were having a lot of these conversations, but it wasn't necessarily like things I was able to see through. And so I was kind of stuck in this, like, yes, I'm excited, but also I'm stressed because we're not there yet. And I don't know what to do with that. And I'm getting questions that I don't know how to answer. And like, how do we get there? Because if not, like, I am going to continue to be in the same spot that I'm in. So it wasn't necessarily like action that came from that directly, but it did say, like, hey, we do need to make this a priority to get
Right.
the growth on this team, so that me, and I'm sure other people on my team were feeling similarly. Like, we just need, how do we better support the people on our team through additions of resources or different processes? So it just led to some of those like more conceptual conversations turning into action, which was great.
And so when you think about those changes and the team that you lead now, so it sounds like you've already kind of put in play the idea of like, hey, unless it's an emergency, immediate response is not necessary. We can have those moments to think, we can have those moments to breathe, which I do think is very different from how a lot of people work, right? Like we
Mm,
have everything immediate at our fingertips. And so we're used to having those immediate responses, and it's not always necessary. It puts a lot of pressure on everybody. How else have you really tried to implement this within your team, this idea of like,
mm.
let's focus on how we can all work better together and, like create something for the better good without burning each other out?
Yeah. Something I'm really passionate about leading a team. I have 10 people that report to me. And one, I think relationships has to be at the heart. Like, I am such a relationship driven person. And you and I were chatting about that before we started recording. That I want to have strong relationships with people on my team and the people that I report to, so that when these things come up, it's really easy to talk about them. And like, easy is in relative terms, right? Like, it's never
Right.
easy. But if we have a strong relationship, it gets a lot easier to say, hey, I'm really struggling right now. Like, this is what I'm going through, and how can you help me? And that's hard to do with a stranger. Like, when you don't have that relationship with someone, like, they don't they don't know you, they don't know your background, right? They don't know, I think, even those things outside of work. Like, I always tell my team, when I have people start on my team, one of the first things I will say is, I care about you as a person, not an employee. Like, So I know that you're going to have things outside of work that have to take priority at times. I have moms on my team. I have people that volunteer. Also, my team sees my calendar. They know that my life is wild outside of work at times. And so like that's also something I say right from the beginning is that stuff has to take priority at times, right? Like our work is important, the work that we do, and I'm proud of the work that I do, but I'm also really proud of the wife that I am, the aunt that I am, the sister, the daughter, the volunteer, all these things outside of work. And so there's going to be times where I'm going to log off a little bit early to go do those things. And I have the same expectations in my team of if I were to ever hear that like you missed your daughter's dance recital because you were doing a work project, like that would break my heart. And so it's setting that expectation right from the start that life and work, like there's no such thing as balance. We just find a way to integrate it and we can use flexibility or these different things to be able to be there for the people and the events that we need to be. I also do it through weekly check-ins. So we have a team meeting where at the beginning of my team, and my team always laughs, but I always ask like scale of 1 to 10, not seven. They're not allowed to choose seven because Midwest, everyone will always
Always a
choose seven,
seven.
always seven. Like 1 to 10, how are you feeling this week? And I share mine too. And that's really opened the door for me as a leader to understand where we're at. Like there's been
Yep.
weeks where our team is like fours and fives, and I'm like, yikes, what's going on? Like, do we need to cancel some meetings? Like, how do I get more time in
Right.
your day? Or even from the team to understand where I'm at. Like, hey, I'm at a five this week because life is crazy outside of work and I have all these things on my to-do list. Like, I'm still here as a resource, but I might not be as available, or it might take me a little bit longer to respond to something. And so I think that just shared check-in is super helpful so that I can grasp like, okay, where are we at as a team? Um, Beyond that, like I genuinely think it's just the awareness of I've been there and I don't want people to get there. So what can we do to avoid that? Which turns into a lot of great conversations between me and my leadership that I report to when we talk long-term growth. Like, hey, I've been in that role. I've been where they are at, and we need to evaluate different things. We need to look at these processes, or we need to advocate for more resources, whatever those solutions might be, or at least just have regular conversations about that type of stuff so that my team isn't getting there. And I'll be the first to say I failed at that too. Like, right, I've had a team member who came to me and was like, I mean, she's wonderful and was kind of like me where it's like she's just going, going, going. And then we started to look at some data and I was like, wait a second. Like, this is a crazy amount of work. Like, wow. And like apologizing, like, I'm so sorry that I didn't catch that. That like
Right.
I recognized you as such a high achiever, right? And such a high performer that it never once crossed my mind that like, hey, maybe I should take a step back and look at her workload. Like, and now that's more of an awareness for me, right? I've learned from that to say like, oh, this is probably something we need to check in on more often, or I need to ask better questions to my team to understand where they're at versus just the scale of 1 to 10. So there's been a lot of learning along the way, but some of it does just come from I've been in their shoes, I've been in those moments, and so if there's things that I can do, even small things to avoid getting them to that point, I want to do those things.
One of my favorite, when I'm interviewing new potential candidates, one of my favorite things to ask is either what is something you enjoy about leadership you've worked with before, or something you would rather not see like emulated in your next job. And it
Yeah.
really sounds like with your leadership team, something that you appreciate is the investment in you as a person. And that's what you have now said, like, I want that to be passed down within this group. I really want that to be an ongoing value on this team.
110%. I've been really lucky, and I always say, so our Chief Human Resources Officer, Lisa, she
Yeah.
has ruined me for the rest of my career once she retires because she is the best of the best. And she's built out a leadership team of directors, right, that are just as wonderful because she hired them and has trained them. And so, though I don't directly report to her, I have a director in between us. She's found great people for me to work with. And I think that that just goes to show that like she is one of those people, right? Like, and you said, what do you want to emulate? Like, I always say everything that I've learned about being a leader, like a lot of it does come from her and how she led as a team. And I did get to report to her for a short amount of time. And I always joke that she's like my second mom, my boss, a friend, like all wrapped into one, which a lot of people would say is controversial and that maybe you shouldn't be friends or you shouldn't have that personal relationship. And I remember asking her one time when I was struggling with something on my team, and I just said like, how do I take the heart out of it? Like I'm always someone that has led from my heart, and yes, like data is important and all the other things, but like at the end of the day, like I lead from my heart. And I was like, how do I take that out of it? And she was like, you don't. Like that's who you are, that's how you lead. Like that's an important part of being the human leader that you are. And I just remember that all the time of, because she's never taken the heart out of it. Like she's had to have tough conversations. She's had to make decisions that are probably not liked by the masses, but she's been able to do it with such a grace and with just such a warm energy that I'm like, if I can do that, like I hopefully would be a leader that other people like aspire to be or look up
Yeah,
to
to
and
follow.
respect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's something I've struggled with as well in terms of like, I want to have those really tight relationships and I want to understand who people are and what matters to them and all those things. But then how do you turn around the next day and be like, hey, we need to talk about X, Y, or Z? But I've kind of gotten to the place now where I do think that those things actually go hand in hand. Because to get that information from somebody who doesn't know why I might be struggling or doesn't know what's going on in the background, I think would be a lot more difficult and more frustrating than from
Hmm.
somebody who's just like, I understand you had a great summer, you took a lot of time off, but like, let's get back on track. We are going to get there, but we need to reevaluate our goals or we need to reset. And I also think that those things can really work hand in hand.
100%. I could not agree more. Like it is one of those like toss-ups, yeah, where as a leader, right? Like you look at, I don't know, there's a million leadership resources out there, and it's
Yeah.
always like, oh, how to be a leader, how to be a manager. And very rarely does it say like build super strong personal relationships and get to know them outside of the work that they do. And I mean, the good ones do, right? But I think I that's something I've learned is some of those hard conversations, and again, hard is such a broad term because not every conversation has to be hard. It might make me feel nervous because I don't love having to tell people like, hey, we got to do a little bit better here, or here's a growth opportunity, right? But in those moments, like knowing the person has helped so much because then I can tailor that conversation. Like I'm not going into that conversation with a wide net of this is what I would tell anyone. Like, no, I'm personalizing this based on you and your personality and your skills and your, strengths or just what you've told me you have going on in your life, right? Like, yeah, like you said, if it's been a super busy summer or you've had all these things going on, like I can understand, like I'm a human too. I can understand,
Yeah.
like, yeah, maybe this hasn't been the priority, but how do I help you refocus? Or how do I help you relook at something? And even just when I'm having to talk to someone on my team about, I also say this when I'm talking to students who are not on my team, but just in different the programs that I run and things. But the more that we know ourselves, like the better leaders that we can be. And I think the better team member that we are, because the more I know myself, like if you and I are working together, Kristen, like, and I can tell you, hey, one of my shame triggers is feeling like my character is called into judgment. If you were leading me, could go, okay, next time I talk to Carrie, like, I'm going to think about that. And I'm going to think about
Absolutely.
how do I present this information to her so that she's receiving it and it's not coming off as, this character attack when that's not what you mean for it to be, right? You're talking to something about my work product, but like I'm going to take that as like, oh my gosh, like I didn't do a good job. I'm not good enough at my job. And so just the more knowledge that I've had about people on my team, the more I'm able to have those conversations and do it from a place of true, genuine care and say, I care about you and I want you to do great work and I know that you can. Like, how do I help you do
Let
that?
me help you.
Yes, and it never like it also doesn't ever have to be like that deep, right? Like, I mean, sometimes it does, like it requires that. But there's been times where I think I build up in my head like, oh my gosh, like this has to be like such a deep conversation and I have to put all this and like because I know the person, I can go and say, "Hey, can we just talk about this? Like, I noticed this, or here's something that I'm seeing. Can we have a conversation about it?" And it's made that conversation less intimidating on both sides, I hope, at least from my perspective, because I feel like I know them, right? And I can say like, I see more in you, and or hey, this is kind of new behavior for you. Like this isn't normal. Like what's going on behind the scenes that I don't know about? So yeah, I really do think that relationships and being able to deliver that feedback or have some of those conversations, like it really does go hand in hand.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And I do think that like any time then that you're saying this is how I want to lead and this is the leader that I want to be and this is how I want my team to grow, I think that that alone is like kind of a bold statement, right? Like because you're forming that, you're creating the format of what this is going to be going forward and you're saying I stand behind it. I think I can create something really beautiful here.
100%. Brene Brown has a book, Dare to Lead, and in it, she has a leadership manifesto, which I really should print and put on my wall. But it's essentially like if you buy into that, right? If you read her book and you go, wow, this is something I really want, and I have read it, um, it's essentially like a way of stating, like, this is what I believe in, this is how I'm going to lead, this is how I'm going to show up. And I think that's one of the best things that you can do for people is just be transparent, right? And I think
Yes.
transparency is another one of those topics that at times people are like, "Oh, you shouldn't be too transparent." And yes, there are times as a leader like there's information I can't share. Like it's not public or
It's
it's
just how it
still
works.
in the
Yep.
works. Like it's just how it works. But if there are things that I can share or even just as a person who I am to be super honest about that, 100% that's what I want to do. And I think that starts even at the interview process, right? Like there have been
Yes.
interviews where, I mean, I should probably not admit this out loud, but like I'm maybe not all put together. Like I don't have like the perfect outfit on, but I'm like, okay, I'm in like my Eide Bailly t-shirt because I've had a crazy day and I'm just showing up authentically. But I think that that also allows that person to see who I am as a leader. Like, oh, okay, this isn't a team where I have to be buttoned up all the time. I have to be perfectly, on professional and on the spot. Like there's a time and place for that 100%, and my team knows what that line is. But it's also like as a team, like I try to lead the environment where like let's just be ourselves, let's be authentic, let's be who we are. and and I think I've also had that question, right? Like there are times where like a lot of people probably don't know this about me unless you're like in my inner circle. Like I'm a fairly sassy like person and snarky, and like I'm sure my husband loves it and hates it all at the same time, and same with my family. But certainly like I maybe don't let that side of myself come out at much at work, right? And that's not to be inauthentic. It's just like, okay, this maybe isn't the
Right place,
right
right
place.
time.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. And then there's moments where I do let that out and they're like, wow, like I had no idea you had this in you, Carrie. And I'm like, well, yeah, because that's a piece of me that I maybe am filtering in a way. And their authenticity doesn't mean that we have to let ourselves just completely be barren, but like
No.
I can show you the parts that are authentically who I am, and hopefully you can see that, regardless. But so I think at the end of the day, it does just come to that. Like we have to show up as we are, and just lead that way and create that environment within our teams.
I also really like what you said about with your weekly check-ins and we can't all be a seven. I think that that's really crucial. I think it probably also gives you some really good insight into being like, okay, one person's five is another person's one. So
Yes.
how do we manage through that? How do we, have you noticed, have you had any success in being like, I can get to know you so much faster, just understanding your workload and how you feel about that workload and what that means for the overall team dynamics?
Yes, 100%. And even recognizing that in myself, right? Like what's my six versus someone else's six. And I think it also has helped when I've had newer people on my team, that idea of, okay, I'm never going to say that this doesn't matter, right? Like, I want people to feel like the work that they're doing does matter. But there's certain things where I'm like, hey, I hear you. At the end of the day, that doesn't matter. Like, that can wait. And that comes from experience, right? I've been doing
Yes.
this for, I'll be at 9 years in December. Like, I've had some of that experience, and people on my team have had that experience as well. But it just looks different coming into a newer environment, right? And we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. And so I think that scale is super important. But then I also think like naturally people will say, I am a nine and here's why. I think it's that here's why that's been really helpful for
Yes.
me, because it also gives me that insight into, again, is it personal or work? Like sometimes it's those things outside of work that are taking up a lot of our time. And as their manager, like there's nothing I can do to change that for them, right? Like I can be there, I can be supportive, I can say, hey, do you need to take off a little bit of extra time? Or I can encourage like, hey, it maybe sounds like you need to use some PTO, like make sure you use that. Or if they're going on PTO, like don't you dare bring your computer with, right? Take that time and be away. um but I do think it has helped me better understand like, yeah, what is everyone's scale, and the what capacity, like every person has a different capacity for what they can hold, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like there are people like it's maybe good if they can't hold as much because maybe there's someone like me who's trained themselves to just pile it all on and be able to hold everything. Um, but I would say a lot of it, then I'm able to take that and then in their one-on-one that I do every week, that's just me and them, we can dig a little deeper if I need to, or I can message them in Teams and say, hey, really sounds like you're struggling. Like, let me know if there is something that I can do. There probably isn't because I know who you are, but like if there is something that I can take, let me know. And it just, yeah, as a broader team, I think it's also opened up the awareness as a team of where everyone's at because there's certain times of year where like September, it's the busiest month of work for my team. Like we're all in the thick of it. But come October, November, I have some team members that are like, okay, I'm past the peak.
Yes.
I still have a lot of things on my plate, but like I'm getting there. And I have other people on my team who like are just ramping up. And so it's given us that idea of like everyone's busy is different and that time is going to be different. And so even if you're feeling like a 9 or a 10, like we might have people on our team that are a 4 or a 5 and is there something that you could do to step up for that person? Or, hey, like I maybe need some team connection time right now, right? Because I just got through my busy season and these other people are just heading into their busy season. And so, like, it's maybe not the best time for us to have these extra things on our calendar, even though that's really important. Um, so, yeah, I would say it's just, it's giving me that awareness, like you mentioned, of, yeah, everyone's scale is different. And so much of that comes in also being able to communicate the why we're feeling that way, which I think can get skipped over really easily.
Absolutely. We have one of the leaders that I work with always says everybody's plate is full. It's just that everybody has a different size plate.
Mm,
And you
it's
won't
a great
realize that
example.
until you have those conversations. Essentially, like we are all operating, whether it's personal, professional, anything, everybody's plate is full. And so it's just
Yes.
trying to dive into what is it full with and what can we help.
Yes. And I think this is something I laugh with my friends a lot too, because my friends and I do this concept called a Waffle Wednesday, which it's for my friends
We
that
do
don't know what.
Waffle Wednesday.
Okay, love it. Yeah, I think we
Yeah,
saw it on like Instagram. My husband started with his friends
yes,
and then we did it. Love this. Yes. It's one of the greatest things. Everyone should be doing Waffle Wednesdays with their friends. But
agreed.
for people who don't know what a Waffle Wednesday is, it's someone saw it on my calendar and asked if I like made waffles every Wednesday. And I was like, no,
Yes.
but that's genius. Um, but we send videos to each other every Wednesday just with like a life update. And so often, my life update's like, oh, we've got this going on and this, and I'm doing this. And they're like, Carrie, you have so much. And I'm like, yes, I recognize that. And there are times, like I was just telling my husband the other night where I was like, I don't regret saying yes to this, but like I didn't have as much on my plate when I said yes. And now I'm trying to balance it. So I have certainly moments where I feel that way, but there's a lot of times where I'm like, I'm really excited about all the things on my plate. Like I love that I get to go volunteer at this dog event and then I get to run to Bio Girls and I get to lead a book club, like all these different things. And someone else, like I certainly have people in my life that like if I were to write out everything that I have going on, they'd be like,
I
are
can't.
you like what? Like how do
Yes.
you handle all of that? And I think some of that's life stage too, right? My friends that are having kids, they maybe just can't because like they have
Getting through the
an
day.
adorable baby that they have to
Yes.
take care of. And my friends that are, more just graduating college, like they're still trying to figure out what those things are that they want to give their time and attention to. And so it's that fine line of like, yeah, we all have different size plates and we have to just acknowledge and welcome that, sometimes, yes, we maybe have grabbed too big of a plate at the buffet line that we didn't mean to grab. We grabbed the tray instead of like the dinner plate, but also like if I grab a tray and I love that I have all this stuff on my tray, like and I'm managing it well, that's the important
It's
part, right? That I'm
all the
managing
difference.
it well and I'm in a healthy mindset to do so. Like it's okay that we all have that difference and we shouldn't judge someone's plate based on what they have on it because it's so different for everyone.
Agreed. I have a couple thoughts just going off of that. So number one, though, I want to go back. Waffle Wednesday, it did hit social media probably like a year ago, right?
Mhm.
Whereas
Yep.
it was like the first, I have a group of friends from, I would say high school and college that we do this. And it has been, I don't think I've ever been closer to them. None of us live very close together, but it has been so amazing to be able to be present, even though geographically we are not, for like big and little moments. Like if I could
Mhm.
encourage anything, it would be Waffle Wednesday.
100%. I have said like one of the groups, I have two group chats that I do it with, and
Love.
one of them, one of the women lives like 30 minutes from me. Like I could see her often, but like our lives
You
just our
connect.
schedules are
Yes.
crazy. And I'm like, I have never felt like I know what's going on in your life more than through these Waffle Wednesdays. Like
Yes.
you said, the big, the little, the exciting moments, and then like we're always like, oh, like harder week. And we're like, yeah, the waffles are not just for the good and uplifting things. Like they are also for those harder moments, those real life things that are coming up. And like, and then of course it's never just a video. Like you always have responses and you're
Those,
talking about all
yes.
these things. Like, so just it's been really, really cool. And so I love that you do
Agreed.
them too. That's so
Yes,
great.
and I love that the name Waffle Wednesday is so notable, right?
Yes,
Like,
100%.
you know exactly what kind of check-in that is.
Yes.
Okay, so that I wanted to touch base on because I love it. And then the other, well, we'll just pivot a little bit, but you had talked about just some of the things that are on your plate right now: book club, dog events, bio girls. You have created really like a pretty robust community where you are a part of a lot of different things. I know a few years back you moved out of the Fargo area.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what that change was like and how you've grown into all of these activities.
Yeah. Honestly, that move probably sparked a lot of these things. So yeah, gosh, 2021, so 4 years ago, my husband and I moved to Hawley, Minnesota, which is just 30 minutes outside of Fargo. He is a teacher and a coach in the community, and just through conversations after we got married, decided it was a better decision for our just relationship and time together to be in Hawley, because I work from home. So I didn't have to do the commute to Fargo like he was doing from Fargo to Hawley. And as a coach, I love being a coach's wife, but it's hard from, September to March probably. He's gone a lot, and I love to support those things, but when we were living in Fargo, like he'd get back from a basketball game at 10:30 and have to still drive half an hour. And so it really didn't allow for us to be able to spend good quality time together often, or to even be able to support him well through that. So that's when we made the decision to move, and certainly it was the right choice. Like I love the community that we live in. And it was hard. Like I had lived in Fargo, I think at that point for, gosh, probably like 7 years, because I went to school in Fargo and then I stayed after I graduated. And so I had built a really strong community. Um, and I don't think in my head I realized like, okay, I'm gonna move 30 minutes. And for people that live in bigger cities than, 2,200 people, and I know you live in a small town, like if they live in Minneapolis, 30 minutes is not that big of a deal. Like you're driving that just to get anywhere. But I think it really made me think about like, wow, I have to put an intentional effort to go into Fargo, to make plans with people. Or, okay, if I'm gonna go to Fargo, like I need to plan an extra half an hour to make sure I can get my dog walked or let out, or, all these different things. And it wasn't just like I could show up on a whim at a restaurant or a happy hour, because we
Yes.
were like, oh, it's a nice day outside. And I think that's still a balance I'm figuring out, is that spontaneity, not living there, because I don't want to live a life. I mean, actually, I do want to live a life that's perfectly planned out, but that's also not realistic and probably very unhealthy. And my husband, Travis, is very like a spontaneous person. And so it's finding that balance. But when I moved out here, I also had some friends that left the community. So it was like, okay, now I don't have these like as close of ties in
Yep.
Fargo as I did before. And in Holly, like I didn't know anyone. Like I was known as Travis's wife or Bear's mom. Bear is my dog. Like people knew me as those two things because the house that we lived in was right across the street from the school. So they'd see me outside, which is great. Like people would wave and they were super friendly. But I didn't have my own identity in Holly like my husband
Right.
did. And so it really did take me like a year to figure out what that was. And Bio Girls was a huge part of that. Bio Girls is a great organization. We've talked about it on a few other episodes of this podcast, but they do 12-week programs for elementary school aged girls in different communities, and Holly has one. And I had heard about them. I was at an event, and a speaker who worked at Bio Girls was talking, and I was like, hey, maybe I should look into that. And so I had reached out, and Holly thankfully was looking for a mentor, and so I got connected, and I
Awesome.
went to that. I knew literally no one, which is terrifying.
Nope.
There's
I
12
have chills
adults
for you.
and Yes, 12
Yep.
adults and 40 young, girls. and walked in there and I was like, oh my gosh, I know literally no one. But it was a great way, like every week to one, get to know the students, right? Which those maybe aren't the strong connections I've built, but I do still love seeing girls that were in my bio girls group, like riding their bike around town, or, they post on the social media pages in town about like their artwork. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she was in my group. But I also, like the mentors, like a lot of them were moms. And so maybe we weren't at the same phase of life, but when I would go to basketball games, like they knew who I was. They'd say hi. And, even some of the other women that were closer to my age, now that I have been a part of Holly's program for 3 years, like last year we started going to grab pizza after the sessions together and start to build some of those things that it's like, it's nice to be recognized. It's nice to have a face or a name to the face. And then beyond that, because again, a lot of my community and Fargo had shifted, I, I also really had to reevaluate like, what does friendship mean? And I think, long distance friendships, we talked about the waffles, right? Like they are challenging, but also they can be really amazing. And people always ask, like, how do you stay so close to your friends that don't live far away? And I'm like, well, the waffles are now one of the biggest ways, but it was
Quirkies.
being so intentional about phone calls. Like, I have a friend who's in Wisconsin. She's one of my like closest friends. We only see each other like every like year and a half or 2 years because she has 3 kids. But we are super intentional about like going for a walk together over our lunch breaks and talking on the phone, or
Awesome.
making that time. She travels for work sometimes. And so it's like, hey, if there's a morning you're going to be driving in the car, I'll make sure that my schedule is clear so that we can chat while I work and you drive. Um, and it's things like that that I had to re-envision what that looked like, as well as, some of these other things like a book club. I love to read. I will talk about books all day long. I won't bore anyone here, but that was an easy way of like, okay, my friend started one that I could join. And then when
Yes.
that kind of became too much of a commitment, like I shifted and some friends and I started one where it's like, just show up, read whatever book you want, but we're just going to talk about books. Like it was finding those ways. And another one was volunteering, right? Like I talked about bio girls, but also I love my golden retriever, and I got connected to a golden retriever rescue that was looking for an event coordinator for the Fargo area. And I was like, that literally matches everything in my personality. Like events, I love to plan them. I love my golden retriever and I want to help other people like find, a golden retriever that needs to be loved. Like that was a perfect match. And so again, not that that's people that I've developed friendships with, but it's given me a different sense of community. Like I go to these events and I get to talk to different people, and gives me something to bond with people over that I'm really passionate
Absolutely.
about, and that's important. So, yeah, a lot of it has just been like something that was maybe hard, but the right move at the time, and still is the right move, like has led to me having to redevelop like what's important to me and what's on my schedule. And as I said, sometimes it is too much, right? Like there are times where I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into with all these things? And certainly I balance out with the work stuff, right? Like I'm very passionate about the work that I do, and the bold program that I run through
Yes.
my work, and that takes up my time too. But it's all things that I'm like, but these all fill my passions and give me that sense of community that I need. And that's worth it to me.
Speaking of the bold program that you just mentioned, what has been, so are you in year 4 or 5?
I think we're in year 7.
7? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
okay, 6. 2019 was our first year. So 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, crazy.
What has been your favorite thing that you've either seen evolve or outcomes? Like when you think about that program and you were going to name your success story, what would it
Mm,
be?
gosh, that's such a good question. It is funny. I look back in like 2019, this program, I started it as a way to fill the gap, right, between college and professional. And so that first year, like so much of that content, like, God, I don't want to look at it anymore because it's like how to communicate, and like those are important things, don't get me wrong, but it's really morphed and into something much deeper. And I think that's also a reflection of the work that I've done personally, right? Where I was 2 years out of school at the time, and or a year out of school, and now I'm 10 years into my career and have very different viewpoints on what's important and what skills we need people to learn. And so as the program has morphed, it's become much more about personal development and personal leadership than external leadership, because the concept, right, is like how to become your boldest self. I mean, it's kind of a play off of this podcast, but um you become your boldest self by knowing yourself. And I said that earlier. And that's something that I've had to learn. And so the content has really morphed into that. Like, how can I help you learn about yourself? It's bringing in the work of Brene Brown, bringing in someone who specializes in the Enneagram, like all these different things. And last year was the first year that we implemented this, where at their graduation, we gave everyone the opportunity to stand up in front of our group and share their story. Like this concept of like, what do you want the world to know? And I gave them all mine the month before of like, hey, here's, if I'm going to ask you to do it, I'm going to do it too. And hearing every single one of those women stand up, and like some of these women are, sophomore, juniors in college, some of them are 10, 15 years in their career, was the coolest experience. Like just the things that, like, again, we talk about like what you see and what you don't in someone, right? That like we all put on these masks, and it doesn't mean that we're living inauthentically. It just means that maybe those are spaces that we haven't felt like we could share with the world, or we have, you know, masked them in a way that it's like, yes, I'll still allow you to see this, but like the core of it. But in their storytelling, like they were being really honest about who they were. And last month, I got to facilitate a panel for one of our Bold program sessions, and we had one of our alumni from last year come. And the question on the panel was, like, what's a moment that really stuck out to you from the program? And one of the alumni was like, standing up in front of that room and telling my story. That was the first time I had ever done something like that, and like has really
Oh,
opened my eyes to like, what do I want the world to know about me? And I was like, excuse me
yeah,
while I go cry. Like, this is incredible. And there's so many little moments, right? Like, it's the relationships I've developed. But if if that can be something that I leave behind, is that like I encourage these women to just be more honest with the world about who they are. Like 110% is worth every minute that I spend planning or coordinating details, or it's 5:30 to 7:30 on a Wednesday night where I'm not home. Like that is so worth it to me, because it's giving those women those moments, and we all need those
absolutely.
moments.
I think that's so interesting too, what you said at the beginning about the growth in you being reflective of the content. I look back at some of the stuff I did 10 to 15 years ago in my career, and I'm just like, oh, girlfriend, you pain me. But it is one of those things, like the external versus internal, how we present ourselves and who we want others to think we are, it really stems from like, well, who are you? So we can't, unless we address that, then we can't go forward with anything. And I too, like what you said, I can echo that in terms of my personal growth has very much, like, I would certainly encourage other people to be like, you don't have to be assertive. You don't have to do this. What you just have to do is know yourself, and then we can use your strengths. Like, we
Yes.
do not all have to be the same, and that is just fine.
I think that that's a piece that gets missed in the workplace so often. And it, like, if I could change the world in workplaces, right, that's one thing I would do. Is it is so important. We have to provide technical training, we have to provide soft skill training. Like those are really important things in the workplace. And if we could give everyone 1 hour a month to do some personal development where they get to learn about themselves, we would be changing. I mean, this is all speculation. In my opinion, like we would be able to change workplaces, and because you're giving people the tools to know more about themselves, and so many of those things, right? Like I accredit a lot of that journey in myself to therapy. Like I've been going to therapy for 6 years and have done a lot of work. And not to say that everyone needs therapy, right? Like I think we can all benefit from it, but I had reasons I was going. But even if you're not someone that needs that level of support, just an hour to learn more about you, right? Like these personality assessments are super helpful, or the work style assessments, but then
Yes.
it's going a step further with that and helping someone really understand, what does that mean? Like the Enneagram for me was mind blowing and game changing in how I can communicate with people. Same with the Working Genius, because it helped me better understand, like, what am I motivated by? What do I show up as? Like, what are my tendencies? And it's given me language with people like the Enneagram, right? Like, my boss has never taken it, but I was able to explain to him, like, hey, I've taken this assessment. I'm a 3, which means my motivation is achievement, which, yes, I'm working on, right? That's not always healthy, but also my default emotion is shame. When these things come up, like, I'm going to feel a lot of shame when I don't do something right. And I'm not asking you to fix that necessarily, but the awareness that that can give someone who has to work with me is a gift. And even for me to recognize my own tendencies to say, hey, I think I am shaming myself for no reason here. Like, give yourself some grace, Carrie. And with the working genius, right? Like, it's all these different things, but one of my geniuses is tenacity, which is essentially being able to see every detail. And I have people that I work with that, like, that's their frustration. Like, they are not an A to Z person, and that's not bad for them. And it's my frustrations aren't bad about me either. But when we work together as a team, I can say, hey, here's why I'm asking all of these questions, or why I'm maybe feeling a little bit overwhelmed that we haven't gone through all these steps. Like, can we take a step back? And so I would love for everyone to be able to do that. And, hopefully through this podcast, people can learn a little bit more too. I think that was one of the reasons where I was like, the more we learn about each other's stories, like, I think the more we can learn about ourselves and just relate to other people. But also, like, yeah, if I could have a dream job or something someday, it would just be like, here's all like the personal development in the workplace, like, and professionals, and especially with young professionals. Like, if I knew some of the stuff when I was 21 or 22 coming out of college, I just imagine, like you said, like, the difference that I could have shown up as, or the work that I could have
Mhm.
done, um, would have been incredible. So if that's a gift I can give people through the Bold program, is giving them these
Where,
skills at a different level, like,
yes.
oh, that's the dream.
I am on the same page as you. So I was part of the 35 under 35 program.
Yes.
And then for the first time, I think, do we take Strengths Finder in that one?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Yep.
And so that was really the first like dipping the toes into what is that, and I found it so interesting about myself. And like, even how in the very first one people were grouped together based on similar strengths, and
Hmm.
how something was in me as compared to how the next person saw that same strength. It was just so interesting, and it made me ask myself like so many questions about myself. So I am also an
Yeah.
Enneagram 3. Something I
I'm
really
not
like,
surprised.
I know. And also, like, my default too is like, oh my gosh, I have a pit in my stomach. I've let somebody down. Like that. There's nothing worse to me than feeling like I've let somebody down. But like through that, it's the same for me where I have to be like, okay, so what am I going to do to fix this? Because now it's become this huge pain point for me, but I can recognize that this is what it is. I feel bad and I have to try and dig
Mm,
myself out of that. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but at least I can start recognizing the signs.
yes.
Um, but what is interesting and what we've seen at work too is doing some of those, like the working competencies, doing those on a team has really let us understand why some teams work really great and some teams
Mm,
don't, right?
yep.
So, like, I don't have tenacity. I am your girl to kick something off. I am great A, you said A to Z. I'm great A through M. And then I'm just like, we need it to go. It's got to go. I've lost my energy. I need to work with a Carrie. If we can do that together, like the stressors that you have in the beginning, I'm going to be the person to be like, don't worry about it. I've got you figured out. But then you're also going to be the person that says, Kristin, we have to get it to the finish line. Suck it up.
Yes, we need all of those people. And we talk about this at work on my team a lot with my director, because one of his working geniuses is Wonder, which is all about brainstorming and coming up with
Yes.
ideas, which is, we
Theoretical.
need people like him. Like, I'm more an invention. I can come up with the idea, but then I need to see it through. Like, I have to take action. And he is someone who can just think of different things. And I'm like, wow, I never would have thought about that, because I'm stuck thinking through all these details, right? And so it's been this good balance of like, yeah, that's a wonderful idea. And then my tenacity genius can come in and say, how do we make that happen? What are the steps that we need to do? And he admits that too, right? Like, details aren't his thing. So he's like, I'm glad I have people like
Yes.
me and my other manager that I work with. Like, he's glad that he has people like us, because we help balance that scale a little bit. And for us, like, we need people like him, because I'm like, I would have never thought of that idea. Like,
Right.
we wouldn't be doing these things. And so it's especially in areas like, right, like, I can dream about programming and events all day long, like, too much at times. Um, but on the data or process side, like, my brain does not work in that way. And so having people that can think through those things and see these things, I'm like, yep, nope, I wouldn't have gotten there on my own. Like, it's important to have that balance. And yeah, it's brought more awareness to, as a team, you have to have all those different. And I think sometimes people equate those things with personality, which is also something I've become more aware of, again, through therapy. I feel like all the things I'm just sharing what my therapist has told here. But
We can
I
all
remember
benefit.
her one time asking the question of, okay, if you were to ask your friends or partner or whatever 3 words to describe you, what do you think that they would say? And I was like, oh, they definitely say I'm organized. And she was like, organized? Like, that's not a character trait, Carrie. That's a learned skill. And I was like,
Oh,
what? And she's
yeah.
like, yeah, like, sure, don't go yell at your friends for saying that. But she was like, I really think you should encourage them and yourself to like rethink what are the character traits, right? Like loving, caring, like kind. Like those are things that, yes, you can learn, right? But more of that is like true to who your character is versus like, if you really wanted to, you could teach someone to be organized. They might not like it, they might not want to do that, but you can teach someone. Like there's tools that you can learn, calendars, etc. But like,
Yes.
so that's what I think about when we talk about these things at work too, like the tenacity, right? Like that's not necessarily saying like my personality, like the Enneagram is maybe more tied with my personality because that's my, what am I motivated by? What's that driving factor? But some of these more work assessment things, I think people see the results and go, oh yeah, like that's who I am. Or like I could look at tenacity and go like, wow, my personality, like I'm just someone who can never get past point B because I'm stuck on A. Like, or that could be where I say I'm organized or I'm a to-do list person. Like, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a personality in there, but like that doesn't equate to my character, right? Like that's something so different. Like who am I at work is more like I want to be a kind leader. I want to be a loving, friend and all these different things. And so
Yes.
it's just something that like kind of opened my eyes too of like how those assessments can also make us get stuck in our own heads at times if
That's a
we are
great
like
point.
if other people we work with don't have those exact same things and you're like, well, I wish I could be more like her. Like it's no, they're all good and they aren't necessarily defining who we are. It's just saying these are skills that you have honed and are really good at. Like what you're good at and who you are 2 different things, even if maybe at times it feels like they're interwoven.
Wow. That is really, I like it. I like it. That's
Yeah,
great.
I was like a mic drop moment with my therapist when she said that. And I was
Like
like, I
that's a
don't,
learned trait.
my
You're like,
brain has never ever processed it in that way.
no. I have a thing about just like a personal thing where I think that each of us has so much to offer the world that when somebody that I know and love describes themselves in their role relationship to other people, like describe yourself in 3 words and they say, well, I'm a mom and I'm a whatever. I want to be like,
Mm,
you're so much more than that. Those are amazing roles that you play, but you are incredibly brave. You are so funny. And you know what I mean?
yep.
Like that's another thing where I'm just like, you are so much more than the roles that are peripheral to other people.
Yes. Brene Brown brings up I'm bringing her up again because that's
She's a great
everything.
lady. Yeah.
Yes. Has this concept in like in her gifts or in her book The Gifts of Imperfection about the slash. Like I am a like everyone when they ask like what do you do, right? It's talking like how many of us say like, oh, I'm the campus recruitment manager, or you would say like I'm a business valuation partner, like, and that we leave it at that. And she has this concept where she's like, okay, but your gifts and talents like are so much more than that. And so she's like, yeah, you can use that, but then it's also like slash I am like a loving volunteer or like there's so much more, or like I am a book lover, I am a podcaster, like I'm all these things. And like you said, some of those things are roles, but also like you said, like the brave and loving, like I think we develop some of those things because of our roles and it makes us better in our roles. Like you said, like the mom, right? Like the friend, because of who I am, I'm able to be a good friend. Like, yes, it's a role that I hold, but it's because I want to live my life from a place of, I mean, I think a lot of it comes back to values. Like, what do I value? I value relationships. And so, therefore, I am going to show up as a friend and a daughter and a sister and an aunt. Like, that's important to me. And so, like you said, we define ourselves by so, I would say so little because it's so much, but like we define ourselves in these boxes that we think we have to be in. And it's so much bigger than that. Like there's so much more to us and we can get stuck in our heads. Like it goes back to kind of what we said earlier. Like when we compare ourselves in comparison, truthfully, like I'm the worst at it, but like, oh, I'm not as good of a mom or I'm not this or that. It's like, well, like we're all doing the best that we can. And these, like you said, the character traits or like the just what you bring to the world is so much bigger than just the roles that you play or the work that you do.
Especially comparatively. Like you're so much more than that. So I mean, we're going to do some to wrap this up. I want to do some of the same rapid fire questions you do, but I also got my own.
Love
But
it.
just to pivot off of that, I think that the one I want to ask first is if you could hear your friends talking about you, if you could eavesdrop on that conversation, what would you want to hear them say?
Huh. I love asking this to my guests, and I'm like, oh gosh, what would I say? I do think I'd want to hear them say like, gosh, Carrie is sassy. Like I love that about my personality. And again, I don't know how many of them would say that, but I also think I would want to just hear them say like they're proud of me. And I know that that sounds like it feels silly to say that, but it goes back to like all those things that I do to show up in the world, right? Like I want to be known for those things. I shouldn't say like we're going back to our achievements, right? But there's the Enneagram 3 coming out in me. Like I just want to know that like they love me and that they're proud of me and that's what matters to me. Like, hey, we're here and so yeah, if I'm gonna hear them over like I would just want to hear them say like, gosh, really proud of Carrie for all the things that she's done or just how she shows up in this world and that we love her sass.
So I have two thoughts on that. I think people would often describe you as intentional. Like I think that you
Mm,
are somebody who like just saying like I want to make sure I connect with my friends. So let's make sure our lunch hours align so we can go for a walk and talk on the phone. Or I value
mm,
these golden retrievers and I know how happy me and Bear are together. And so like let me give somebody else that. I would say that people would use the word intentional when it comes to you every single time. And I think that that is proud of you for showing up in my life, proud of you for being a great aunt, proud of you for all of these other things. So,
that's a great word. I'm gonna have to add that to my repertoire of 3 words, intentional, because I think you're right. It really fits.
yes, I think so too. Okay, so I know you've had a lot of the other rapid fire questions. You've probably heard them a lot. So I'm going to go with I'm a big conversation card person.
Well, you know I am. I have like 6 decks.
I
Of
have
course.
6 decks right here.
I love it.
So we're ready.
I'm
Number
ready.
one, what instantly puts you in a good mood?
Christmas music.
Any time of
100%.
year?
Anytime. It's what I listen to all day at work. I have a Christmas tree tattoo. Like it's just my personality. That and my dog, like cuddling on the ground or seeing him when I come home. Instant good mood.
Love. What popular movie have you never seen?
Oh, there's probably a lot. Um, Gosh, that's a good question. I feel like Travis, my husband, has a list of movies that I have not seen. Probably like the Batman movies. I feel like I've maybe seen them once or twice, like snippets, but genuinely could not tell you beyond the fact that it's Batman, like
Batman.
what the concept of that movie is.
For me, it's Star Wars, and I kind of feel like it's too
Oh,
late now. Like, I mean, I
I
could do
was
it.
raised by a
It's
mom who
huge time
loves Star
investment.
Wars, so I did
Okay.
see them, and Travis loves them, so I've rewatched them, but again, I don't know all the like the lore, the ins and the outs, like, and that's a commitment if you're gonna dive into it.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of them, so I don't blame you.
What is the most beautiful place you've ever been to?
Geneva, Switzerland. I got to go when I was in high school with a music group, and we got to spend, I don't remember the exact name of the town that we stayed in that was in the mountains, but like our hotel balcony like overlooked the Swiss Alps and it was gorgeous. And then we went down into Geneva, which is a town, and there was this beautiful lake and like mountains in the background and flowers and street artists and Swiss chocolate, which you can't get better than that. And gosh, yeah, I will go back
Amazing.
there every day. And I got a painting from the street artist that hangs in my office every day. It's just a like reminder of what a place that was.
That's awesome. What lapsed hobby would you like to return to if you had the time?
Cross stitching. And I
So
kind of
good.
started that earlier this year, but I did it a lot as a kid and completely forgot about it. My mom does it and she's so talented. She's made us all Christmas stockings, like cross stitch Christmas stockings. And so this last year, Travis is a big Liverpool soccer fan, or I guess football. And they had a big sale on their website and they had a cross stitch kit like to make this Liverpool thing. And I was like, I'm gonna pick up cross stitching. I have not gotten very far. I think I've gotten the L done in Liverpool. Um,
It's a big
but
word too.
I'm like, eventually I will pick that up. I will finish it. But it's way more hard than I remember it being. Like when I was a kid, I do not remember it being this challenging, but those holes are so small and you have to get the needle through it. It is way hard. Like my arms were sore the next day and I was like, clearly I was like squinting and hunched over. So I
Oh, that's so
need to
great.
figure out how to do it better than I was doing it currently.
And last one is going to be, what's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh my gosh, this is such a hard question because I love concerts and we've talked about this like so many ways. So I'm gonna give three answers, but they all come from different avenues. I know that's
Support.
not how it's supposed to go, but if I'm going like vibes, I'm going Lake Street Dive. They're a band that Travis and I love. We've seen them 4 times. They're like a jazz, funky pop, and their concerts are just such a good time. Like dancing and bopping and just like singing your lungs out, like such a good time. So any one of their concerts that I've been to has been amazing. If I'm going like pure musical ability, probably Ed Sheeran, just because we went to his not Eras tour, that's Taylor Swift, but like his version of it where he like played all of his different albums and just he is so musically talented where he can like have all these different styles and instruments and he's like running around the stage singing and it was yeah, truly just amazing. If I'm going like non-concert because it wasn't like I went to a Disney Channel DJ show recently. I know you asked me about it
Yeah.
on Instagram after. I don't know that any musical experience will ever top that, even though it wasn't a concert. Like it was just a DJ playing Disney Channel music. But I don't think I've ever sang so loud. I got like 12,000 steps in a matter of like 3 hours because of dancing. Like it was incredible. And so it's not really a concert, but I have to put it in my top three because it just like nothing will ever top.
That is so amazing. I was incredibly jealous the minute that I saw there was High School Musical jams being played. I was just like,
Yes.
this is it.
They do it every year, Kristen. So I'm just saying next
Just
year, if
let
they
me
come to
know.
Minneapolis, we'll
Yep.
road trip and go
Yep.
together.
Absolutely. Um, Carrie, this has been really awesome just to get to know you better and to understand like your bold moves has happened over so many different events, creating the bold program, the bold podcast, having those hard conversations at work, and then having that shape how you lead a team. It's all been so great to get to know you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've kind of made bold like part of my personality. I got it tattooed on me even to say be bold. It's just kind of become that rallying cry for all these things in my life. But like you said, so much of what I've done has come from bold movements or just bold decisions. And like we say every podcast, like sometimes those bold decisions aren't big. Like they're super small things or
You can
just
be subtle.
yep, subtle things that happen. But it's really shaped who I am. So thank you for interviewing me today. You're such a great podcast host, and you're going to be back for all of our listeners. Kristen will be back
Yes,
because she has to. But thank you for taking the time to interview me today.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's make it through September.
Yes, let's do it. Thanks, Kristen.
Bye.